He always assumed the girl was Polish because of the name of the club. She might have been 18. Mrs. Zabritsky would have been that age after getting out of the concentration camp, smooth-skinned, lithe, a young survivor. What time does to people. Her face is broken into furrows that crisscross each other like a checkerboard of skin. She should wait, Mrs. Zabritsky says. I'll tell her you said so, he says loudly, fighting the magnetism sucking at him out of the unspoken fact that she is a woman and he is a man, and both are alone and crazy. A few doors apart in this corridor, like a long peach-colored chute, glinting with silver lines in the embossed wallpaper. All his life seems to have been a journey into the bodies of women. Why should his journey end now? Say she was 18 when the war ended, he was 12. She is only 6 years older. 62. Not so bad. Can still work up some juice. Bev Gold is older and sexy. He tries to watch TV, but it makes him restless. The last of the summer reruns are mixed in with previews of new shows that don't look that much different. Families, laugh tracks, zany drop-ins, those three-sided living room sets with the stairs coming down in the background like in Cosby, and front doors on the right through which the comical, good-natured grandparents come, bearing presents and presenting problems. The door is on the right in Cosby and on the left in Roseanne. That fat husband's going to have his cardiovascular problems, too. TV families and your own are hard to tell apart, except yours isn't interrupted every 6 minutes by commercials, and theirs don't get bogged down into nothingness. A state where nothing happens. No skit, no zany visitors, no outburst on the laugh track. Nothing at all but boredom and a lost feeling. Especially when you get up in the morning and the moon is still shining and men are making noisy bets on the first tee. At first he thinks Janice has tried so hard to reach him those 4 days before the phone got connected on Thursday that she's lost faith in their old number. Then he begins to accept her silence as a definite statement. I'll never forgive you. Okay, he'll be damned if he'll call her. Dumb mutt. Rich bitch. Working girl yet. Thinks she's so fucking hot, running everybody's lives with those accountants and lawyers Charlie put her onto. He's known her so drunk she couldn't get herself to the bathroom to pee. The few times Harry has weakened impulsively, usually around 4 or 5, when he can't stand the sound of the golf games beginning up again and it's still hours to dinner, the telephone in the little limestone house in Penn Park rings and rings without an answer. He hangs up in a way, relieved. Nothingness has a purity. Like running. He showed her he still had some kick in his legs, and now she's showing him she can still be stubborn. Her silence frightens him. He fights off images of some accident she might have, slipping in the bathtub or driving the Camry off the road, having had too much to drink over at Nelson's or at some Vietnamese restaurant with Charlie, without him knowing. Police frogmen finding her drowned in the back seat like that girl from Wilkes-Barre 20 years ago. But no, he'd be notified if anything were to happen. Somebody would call him, Nelson or Charlie or Benny at the lot, if there still is a lot. Each day down here, events in Pennsylvania seem more remote. His whole life seems, as he rotates through the empty condo rooms, each with its view across the parallel fairways to a wilderness of Spanish tile roofs, to have been unreal, or no realer than the lives on TV shows. And now it's too late to make it real, to be serious, to reach down into the earth's iron core and fetch up a real life for himself. The local air down here this time of year is full of violence, as if the natives are on good behavior during the winter season. Hurricane alarms, Gabriel packs punch, head-on car crashes, masked hold-ups at Publix. The day after Labor Day, lightning kills a young football player leaving the field after practice. The story says Florida has more deaths by lightning than any other state. In Cape Coral, a Hispanic police officer is charged with beating his Cocker Spaniel to death with a crowbar. Sea turtles are dying by the thousands in shrimp nets. A killer called Pettit, whose own mother says he looks like Charles Manson, is pronounced mentally fit to stand trial. That Deion Sanders is still making the front page of the Fort Myers News Press. One day he knocks in 4 runs and a homer playing baseball for the Yankees. The next he signs for millions to play football for the Atlanta Falcons, and the very next he's being sued by the auxiliary cop he hit last Christmas at that shopping mall. And on Sunday he bobbles a punt return for the Falcons, but runs it back for a touchdown anyway. The only man in human history to hit a home run and score a touchdown in pro ball the same week. Dion has the right stuff. Enjoy it while he can. He calls himself Primetime and is always on the TV news wearing sunglasses and gold chains. Rabbit watches that big kid Becker beat Lendl in the U.S. Tennis Open final and gets depressed. Lendl seemed old and tired and stringy, though he's only 28. He talks to nobody except for Mrs. Zabritsky when she catches him in the hall, and the teenage Florida cracker sales clerks when he buys his food and razor blades and toilet paper, and the people who feel obliged to make chit-chat, the other retirees in the Valhalla dining room. They always ask about Janice, so it gets to be embarrassing, and he more and more just heats up something frozen and stays in the condo, ransacking the cable channels for something worthy to kill time with. In his solitude, his heart becomes his companion. He listens to it, tries to decipher its messages. It has different rhythms at different times of the day, a thrumph, sluggish, slightly underwater beat in the morning, and toward evening, when the organism gets tired and excited at once, a more skittish thudding, with the accent on the first beat and grace notes added, little trips and pauses now and then. It twinges when he gets up out of bed, and then again when he lies down, and whenever he thinks too hard about his situation, having set himself adrift like this. He could have gone over that night and faced the music, but how much music is a man supposed to face? So he and Prue did fuck once. What are we put here in the first place for? These women complain about men seeing nothing but tits and ass when they look at them, but what are we supposed to see? We've been programmed to tits and ass. Except guys like Slim and Lyle, the tits got left out of their program. One thing he knows is if he had to give parts of his life back, the last thing he'd give back is the fucking, even that sniffly girl in the Polish-American Club. She hardly said 2 words, just took his 20, a lot of money in those days, and wiped her nose with a handkerchief while he was on top of her, but nevertheless she showed him something. She took him in where it mattered. A lot of this other stuff you're supposed to be grateful for isn't where it matters. When he gets up from the deep wicker chair indignantly, he can't stand Cheers now that Shelley Long is gone, that guy with the Cro-Magnon brow he never did like, and goes into the kitchen to refill his bowl of Keystone corn chips, which not all of the stores down here carry, but you can get over at the Winn-Dixie on Pinto Palm Boulevard. Harry's heart confides to him a dainty little gallop, the kind of lacy riff the old swing drummers used to do, hitting the rims as well as the skins and ending with a tingling pop off the hi-hat, the music of his life. When this happens, he gets an excited, hurried, full feeling in his chest. It doesn't hurt, it's just there, muffled inside that mess inside himself he doesn't like to think about, just like he never cared for rare roast beef as it used to come on the takeout subs from the chuck wagon across Route 111 before it became the Pizza Hut. Any sudden motion now, he feels a surge of circulation, a tilt of surprise in the head that makes one leg feel shorter than the other for a second. And the pains, maybe he imagines it, but the contractions of the bands across his ribs, the feeling of something having been sewn there from the inside, seems to cut deeper, more burningly, as though the thread the patch was sewn with is growing thicker and red-hot. When he turns off the light at night, he doesn't like feeling his head sink back onto a single pillow. His head seems sunk in a hole then. It's not that he can't breathe exactly, he just feels more comfortable, less full, if he has his head up on the 2 pillows and lies facing the ceiling. He can turn on his side, but his old way of sleeping, flat on his stomach with his feet pointing down over the edge, has become impossible. There is a nest of purple, slithering, half-dead thoughts he cannot bear to put his face in. There is a whole host of goblins, it turns out, that Janice's warm little tightly knit body, even snoring and farting as it sometimes did, protected him from. In her absence, he sleeps with his heart, listening to it race and skip when his rest is disturbed, when kids who have climbed the fence yell on the empty moonlit golf course, when a siren bleats somewhere in downtown Delian, when a big jet from the north heads in especially low to the Southwest Florida Regional Airport, churning the air. He awakes in lavender light and then lets his heart's slowing beat drag him back under. His dreams are delicious, like forbidden candy. Intensely colored, overpopulated rearrangements of old situations stored in his brain cells, rooms like the little living room at 26 Vista Crescent, with the fireplace they never used and the lamp with the driftwood base. Or the old kitchen at 303 Jackson, with the wooden icebox and the gas stove with its nipples of blue flame and the porcelain table with the worn spots, skewed and new and crowded with people at the wrong ages. Mim with lots of green eye makeup at the age Mom was when they were kids. Or Nelson as a tiny child sliding out from under a car in the greasy service section of Springer Motors, looking woebegone and sickly with his smudged face. Or Marty Totherow and Ruth and even that nitwit Margaret Costco. He hasn't thought of her name for 30 years, but there she was in his brain cells, just as clear with her underfed city pallor as she was that night in the booth of the Chinese restaurant. Ruth next to him and Margaret next to Mr. Totherow, whose head looks lopsided and gray like that of a dying rhinoceros. The four of them meeting now in the Valhalla dining room with its garbled bas-relief of Vikings and sumptuous salad bar, where the dishes underneath the plastic sneeze guard are bright and various as jewels, arranged in rainbow order like the crayons in the Crayola boxes that were always among his birthday presents in February. A little stadium of waxy-smelling pointed heads there in the bright February window light with icicles and the stunned sense of being a year older. Harry wakes from these delicious dreams reluctantly, as if their miniaturized visions are a substance essential to his nutrition. A polychrome, finely fitted machine he needs to reinsert himself into, like poor Thelma and her dialysis machine. He awakes always on his stomach, and only as his head clears and recreates present time, establishing the felt gray parallel lines he sees as the dawn behind the curved slats of Venetian blinds, and the insistent pressure on his face as the cool Gulf breeze coming in where he left the sliding door ajar, does his solitude begin to gnaw again and his heart to talk to him. At times it seems a tiny creature, a baby, pleading inside him for attention, for rescue. And at others a sinister intruder, a traitor muttering in code, an alien parasite nothing will expel. The pains, when they come, seem hostile and deliberate, the knives of a strengthening enemy. He makes an appointment with Dr. Morris. He is able to get one surprisingly soon, the day after next. These doctors are scrambling down here, a glut of them, too many miners at the gold rush, the geriatric immigrants still hanging up north this time of year. The office is in one of those low stucco clinics along Route 41. Soothing music plays constantly in the waiting room, entwining with the surf sound of traffic outside. The doctor has aged since the last appointment. He is bent over and shuffly with arthritic knuckles. His shriveled jaw looks not quite clean-shaven. His nostrils are packed with black hair. His son, young Tom, pink and sleek in his mid-40s, gives Harry a freckled fat hand in the hall and is wearing his white clinical smock over Kelly-green golf slacks. He is established in an adjacent office, primed to take over the full practice. But for now the old doctor clings to his own patients. Harry tries to describe his complex sensations. Dr. Morris, with an impatient jerk of his arthritic hand, waves him toward the examination room. He has him stripped to his jockey undershorts, weighs him, tut-tuts. He seats him on the examination table and listens to his chest through his stethoscope and taps his naked back with a soothing, knobby touch, and solemnly, silently takes Harry's hands in his. He studies the fingernails, turns them over, studies the palms, grunts. Close up, he gives off an old man's sad, leathery, moldy smell. "Well," Harry asks, "what do you think?" "How much do you exercise?" "Not much. Not since I got down here. I do a little gardening up north. Golf, but I've kind of run out of partners." Dr. Morris ponders him through rimless glasses. His eyes, once a sharp blue, have that colorless, sucked look to the irises. His eyebrows are messy, tangled tufts of white and reddish brown. His forehead and cheeks are flecked with small blotches and bumps. His projecting eyebrows lift like turrets taking aim. "You should walk." "Walk?" "Briskly. Several miles a day. What sorts of food are you eating?" "Oh, stuff you can heat up. TV dinner kind of thing. My wife is still up north, but she doesn't cook that much even when she's here. Now, my daughter-in-law—" "You ever eat any of this salty junk that comes in bags?" "Well, once in a great while." "You should watch your sodium intake. Snack on fresh vegetables if you want a snack. Read the labels. Stay away from salt and animal fats. I think we've been through all this when you were in the hospital." He lifts his forearm and checks his record. 9 months ago." Yeah, I did for a while. I still do. It's just that day to day it's easier to poison yourself. Don't be lazy about it. And you should lose 40 pounds. Without the salt in your diet, you'd lose 10 in retained water in 2 weeks. I'll give you a diet list if you've lost the one I gave you before. You may get dressed. The doctor has grown smaller, or his desk has grown bigger since Harry's last visit here. He sits down, dressed, at the desk and begins. The pains will moderate with better conditioning. Your heart doesn't like what you're feeding it. Have you been under any special stress lately? Not really, just the normal flack. A couple family problems, but they seem to be clearing up. The doctor is writing on his prescription pad. I want you to have blood tests and an EKG at the Community General. Then I want to consult with Dr. Ullman. Depending on how the results look, it may be time for another catheterization. Oh, Jesus, not that again. The messy eyebrows go up again, the prim, dry lips pinch in. Not a clever, generous Jewish mouth. A crabby Scots economy in the way he thinks and talks, on the verge of impatience, having seen so many hopelessly deteriorating patients in his life. What didn't you like? Were the hot flashes painful? It just felt funny, Harry tells him, having that damn thing inside me. It's the idea of it. Well, do you prefer the idea of a life-threatening restenosis of your coronary artery? It's been, nearly 6 months since you had the angioplasty at... He reads his records with difficulty. St. Joseph's Hospital in Brewer, Pennsylvania. They made me watch, Harry tells him. I could see my own damn heart on TV, full of like Rice Krispies. A tiny Scots smile, dry as a thistle. Was that so bad? It was, he searches for the word, insulting. In fact, when you think about it, his whole life from here on in is apt to be insulting. Pacemakers, crutches, wheelchairs, impotence. Dr. Morris is making, in a deliberate, tremulous hand, notes to add to his folder. Without looking up, he says, There are a number of investigative instruments now that don't involve a catheter. Scans using IV technetium-99 can identify acutely damaged heart muscle. Then there is echocardiography. We won't rush into anything. Let's see what you can do on your own with a healthier regimen. Great. I want to see you in 4 weeks. Here are slips for the blood tests and EKG, and prescriptions for a diuretic and a relaxant for you at night. Don't forget the diet lists. Walk, not violently, but vigorously, 2 or 3 miles a day. Okay, Rabbit says, beginning to rise from his chair, feeling as light as a boy called into the principal's office and dismissed with a light reprimand. But Dr. Morris fixes him with those sucked-out old blue eyes and says, Do you have any sort of a job? According to my last information here, you were in charge of a car agency. That's gone. My son's taken over, and my wife wants me to stay out of the kid's way. The agency was founded by her father. They'll probably wind up having to sell it off. Any hobbies? Well, I read a lot of history. I'm a kind of a buff, you could say. You need more than that. A man needs an occupation. He needs something to do. The best thing for a body is a healthy interest in life. Get interested in something outside yourself, and your heart will stop talking to you. The smell of good advice always makes Rabbit want to run the other way. He resumes rising from the chair and takes Dr. Morris's many slips of paper out into the towering heat. The few other people out on the parking lot seem tinted smoke rising from their shadows, barely existing. The radio in the Celica is full of voices yammering about Deion Sanders, about Koch losing the New York Democratic primary to a black, about the SAT scores dropping in Lee County, about President Bush's televised appeal to America's school children yesterday. The man's not doing anything, one caller howls. Well, Rabbit thinks, doing nothing works for Bush, why not for him? On the car seat next to him, Dr. Morris' prescriptions and medical slips and Xeroxed diet sheets lift and scatter in the breeze from the car air conditioning. On another station, he hears that the Phillies beat the Mets last night 2-1. Dickie Thon homered with 1 out in the 9th, dropping the preseason pennant favorites 5.5 games behind the once lowly Chicago Cubs. Harry tries to care, but has trouble. Ever since Schmidt retired. Get interested is the advice, but in truth you are interested in less and less. It's nature's way. But he does begin to walk. He even drives to the Palmetto Palm Mall and buys a pair of walking Nikes with a bubble of special high-tech air to cushion each heel. He sets out between 9 and 10 in the morning after eating breakfast and digesting the news press, and then again between 4 and 5, returning to a nap and then dinner and then television and a page or two of his book and a sound sleep thanks to the walking. He explores Delian. First, he walks the curving streets of low stucco houses within a mile of Valhalla Village, with unfenced front yards of tallish, tough grass, half-hiding bits of dried palm frond. A Florida texture in that, a cozy, sere Florida scent. A feeling of mass vacation in which encountering a UPS man delivering or a barking small dog, a flat-faced Pekingese with its silky long hair done up in ribbons, is like finding life on Mars. Then, growing ever fonder of his Nikes, that bubble in the heel, he thought at first it was just a gimmick, but maybe it does add bounce. He makes his way to the downtown and the river, where the town first began as a fort in the Seminole Wars and a shipping point for cattle and cotton. He discovers, some blocks back from the beachfront and the green glass hotels, old neighborhoods where shadowy big spicy gentle trees, live oaks and gums, and an occasional banyan widening out on its crutches, overhang wooden houses once painted white but flaking down to gray bareness, with louvered windows and roofs of corrugated tin. Music rises from within these houses, scratchy radio music, and voices raised in argument or jabbery jubilation, bright fragments of overheard life. The sidewalks are unpaved. Small paths, such as cats make, have been worn diagonally between the trees, in and out of private property, the parched grass growing in patches, packed dirt littered with pods and nuts. It reminds Harry of those neighborhoods he blundered into trying to get out of Savannah, but also of the town of his childhood, Mount Judge in the days of Depression and distant war, when people still sat on their front porches, and there were vacant lots and odd-shaped cornfields, and men back from work in the factories would water their lawns in the evenings, and people not long off the farm kept chickens in backyard pens and peddled the eggs for odd pennies. Chickens clucking and pecking and suddenly squawking. He hasn't heard that sound for 40 years and hasn't until now realized what he's been missing. For chicken coops tucked here and there dot this sleepy neighborhood he has discovered. In the daytime here, under the heavy late summer sun, there are few people moving, just women getting in and out of cars with preschool children. The slams of their car doors carry a long way down the dusty straight streets under the live oaks. At some corners there are grocery stores that also sell beer and wine in the permissive southern way, and pastel-painted bars with the door open on a dark interior, and video rental places with horror and kung fu tapes displayed in the window, the boxes' colors being bleached by the sun. One day he passes an old-fashioned variety store in a clapboarded one-story building displaying all sorts of innocent things. Erector sets, model airplane kits, Chinese checkerboards and marbles that he hadn't known were still being sold. He almost goes in but doesn't dare. He is too white. Toward late afternoon, when he takes his second walk of the day, the neighborhood begins to breathe. A quickness takes hold. Men and boys return to it, and Rabbit walks more briskly, proclaiming with his stride that he is out for the exercise, just passing through, not spying. These blocks are black, and there are miles of them, a vast, stagnant economic marsh left over from Delian's southern past, supplying the hotels and condos with labor, with waiters and security guards and chambermaids. To Harry, whose Delian has been a glitzy community of elderly refugees, these blocks feel like a vast secret, and as the shadows lengthen under the trees and the chickens cease their day-long clucking, his senses widen to grasp the secret better, as when in whispering knickers he would move through Mount Judge unseen, no taller than a privet hedge, trying to grasp the unspeakable adult meaning of the lit windows, of the kitchen noises filtering across the yards, mysterious and damp as jungles. An unseen child would cry, a dog would bark, and he would tingle with the excitement of being at this point of time and space, with worlds to know and forever to live, himself, Harold C. Angstrom, called Hassie in those lost days, never to be relived. He prolongs his walks, feeling stronger, more comfortable in this strange city where he is at last beginning to live as more than a visitor. But as darkness approaches and the music from the glowing, slatted windows intensifies, he begins to feel conspicuous. His whiteness begins to glimmer. And he heads back to the car, which he has taken to parking in a lot or at a meter downtown, as base for his widening explorations. Coming back one day around 6:30, just in time for a shower and a look at the news while his TV dinner heats in the oven, he is startled by the telephone's ringing. He has ceased to listen for it as intensely as in that first lonely week. When it does ring, it has been one of those recordings. "Hello there, this is Sandra. Selling health insurance or a no-frills burial plan or reduced-fee investment services. Going through all the numbers by computer. You wonder how it pays. Harry always hangs up and can't imagine who would listen and sign up for this stuff." But this time the caller is Nelson, his son. "Dad?" "Yes," he says, gathering up his disused voice, trying to imagine what you can say to a son whose wife you've boffed. "Nellie," he says, "how the hell is everybody?" The distant voice is gingerly, shy, also not sure what is appropriate. "We're fine, pretty much." "You're staying clean?" He didn't mean to take the aggressive so sharply. The other voice, fragile in its distance, is stunned into silence for a moment. "You mean the drugs?" "Sure, I don't even think about coke, except at N.A. meetings. Like they say, you give your life over to a higher power. You ought to try it, Dad." "I'm working on it." "Listen, no kidding, I am. I'm proud of you, Nelson. Keep taking it a day at a time, that's all anybody can do." Again, the boy seems momentarily stuck. Maybe this came over as too preachy. Who is he to preach? Shit, he was just trying to share like you're supposed to. Harry holds his tongue. "There's been so much going on around here," Nelson tells him, "I really haven't thought about myself that much. A lot of my problem, I think, was idleness. Hanging around the lot all day waiting for some action, for the customers to show up, really preys on your self-confidence. I mean, you have no control. It was degrading. I did it. For 15 years I did it, every day." "Yeah, but you have a different sort of temperament. You're more happy-go-lucky." "Stupid, you mean?" "Hey, Dad, I didn't call up to quarrel. This isn't exactly fun for me. I've been putting it off, but I got some things to say." "Okay, say 'em." This isn't working out. He doesn't want to be this way. He is putting his anger at Janice onto the kid. Her silence has hurt him. He can't stop, adding, "You've sure taken your time saying anything. I've been down here all by myself for 2 weeks. I saw old Dr. Morris, and he thinks I'm so far gone I should stop eating." "Well," Nelson says back, "if you were so crazy to talk, you could have come over that night instead of getting in the car and disappearing. We weren't going to kill you. We just wanted to talk it through, to understand what had happened, really, in terms of family dynamics. Prue's as good as admitted it was a way of getting in touch with her own father." "With blubber lips Lubble? Tell her thanks a lot." But he is not displeased to hear Nelson taking a firmer tone with him. "You're not a man in this world until you've got on top of your father." In his own case, it was easier. The system had beaten Pop so far down already. "Coming over there that night felt like a setup," he explains to Nelson. "Well, Mom didn't think any of us should try to get in touch if that's the kind of cowardly trick you were going to pull. She wasn't too happy you telephoned Prue instead of her, either. I kept trying our number, but she's never home. Well, whatever. She wanted me to let you know a couple things. One, she has an offer on the house, not as much as she'd hoped for, $185, but the market's pretty flat right now, and she thinks we should take it. It would reduce the debt to Brewer Trust to the point where we could manage it. Let me get this straight. This is the Penn Park house you're talking about, the little gray stone house I've always loved? What other house could you think? We can't sell the Mount Judge house. Where would we all live? Tell me, Nelson, I'm just curious. How does it feel to have smoked up your parents' house in crack?" The boy begins to sound more like himself. He whines, "I keep telling you, I was never that much into crack. The crack just came into it toward the end. It was so much more convenient than freebasing. I'm sorry, Jesus. I went to rehab. I took the vows. I'm trying to make amends, like they say. Who are you to still be on my case?" "Who indeed?" "Okay," Rabbit says. "Sorry to mention it. What else did your mother tell you to tell me?" "Hyundai is interested in the lot. The location is just what they want and don't have. They'd enlarge the building out toward the back like I always wanted to do." Goodbye, Paraguay, Rabbit thinks. They'd keep the service people on with a little retraining and some of the sales force. Elvira might go over to Rudy's on 422. Hyundai's made her a counteroffer, but they don't want me. No way. Word gets around, I guess, among these Oriental companies. I guess, Harry says. Too much ninjo, not enough Geary. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, Dad. It frees me up. I'm thinking of becoming a social worker. A social worker? Sure, why not? Help other people instead of myself for a change. It's a 2-year course at the Penn State Extension. I could still get in for this October. Sure, why not, come to think of it, Rabbit agrees. He is beginning to dislike himself for being so agreeable, for wanting to worm back into everybody's good graces. Me and the lawyers all think if it goes through, we should lease to Hyundai rather than sell. If we sell the house in Penn Park, we wouldn't need any more capital and should keep the lot as an investment. Mom says it's going to be worth millions by the year 2000. Wow, Harry says unenthusiastically. You and your mom are quite a team. Anything else to hit me with? Well, this maybe isn't any of your business, but Prue thought it was. We're trying to get pregnant. We? We want to have a third child. All this has made us realize how much we've been neglecting our marriage and how much really we have invested in making it work. Not only for Judy and Roy, but for ourselves. We love each other, Dad. Maybe this is supposed to make him feel jealous, and there is a pang just under the right ventricle. But Rabbit's basic emotion is relief at being excused from having to keep any kind of candle burning at Prue's shrine. Good luck to her and her slum hunger. Great, he tells the boy. He can't resist adding, though I'm not so sure social workers make enough to support 3 kids. And, getting mad, feeling squeezed, he goes on, and tell your mother I'm not so sure I want to sign our house away. It's not like the lot. We're co-owners, and she needs my signature on the sales agreement. If we split up, my signature ought to be worth quite a bit, tell her. Split up? The boy sounds frightened. Who's saying anything about splitting up? Well, Harry says, we seem split up now. At least I don't see her down here unless she's under the bed. But don't you worry about it, Nelson. You've been through this before, and I felt lousy about it. You get on with your own life. It sounds like you're doing fine. I'm proud of you. Or did I say that? But everything kind of depends on selling the Penn Park house. Tell her I'll think about it. Tell Judy and Roy I'll give 'em a call one of these days. But, Dad... Nelson, I've got this low-cal frozen dinner in the oven, and the buzzer went off 5 minutes ago. Tell your mother to call me sometime if she really wants to talk about it. Must run. Terrific to talk to you, really. He hangs up. He has been buying low-cal frozen meals, raw vegetables like cabbage and carrots, and no more sodium-laden munchies. He has lost 3 pounds on the bathroom scale, if he weighs himself naked and right in the morning after taking a crap. At night, to keep himself away from the TV and the bread box in the kitchen drawer and the beer in the refrigerator, he gets into bed and reads the book Janice gave him for last Christmas. Its author has joined Roy Orbison and Bart Giamatti in that beyond where some celebrities like Elvis and Marilyn expand like balloons and become gods, but where most shrivel and shrink into yellowing obituaries not much bigger than Harry's will be in the Brewer Standard. In the news press he doesn't expect to get an inch. He read in her obituary that the author had been a niece of Roosevelt's Secretary of the Treasury, Henry Morgenthau, Jr. Harry remembers Morgenthau, the pointy-nosed guy who kept urging him and all his schoolmates to buy war stamps with their pennies. It's a small world and a long life in a way. He has reached the exciting part of the book where, after years of frustration and starvation and lousy support from his fellow would-be Americans, Washington has hopes of joining up with a French fleet sailing from the Caribbean to trap Cornwallis and his army at York in the Chesapeake Bay. It seems impossible that it will work. The logistics of it need perfect timing, and the communications take weeks, ships to land and back. Anyway, what's in it for France? Instead of an aggressive ally, they were tied to a dependent client, unable to establish a strong government and requiring transfusions of men-at-arms and money to keep its war effort alive. The war, like all wars, was proving more expensive for the Bourbons than planned. What was in it for the soldiers? The American troops, for too long orphans of the battle, unkempt, underfed, and unpaid, while Congress rode in carriages and dined at well-laid tables, would not march without pay. What was in it for Washington? He couldn't even have known he'd get his face on the dollar bill. But he hangs in there, patching, begging, scrambling, his only assets the fat-headedness of the British commanders, all gouty noblemen wishing they were home in their castles. and the fact that, just like in Vietnam, the natives weren't basically friendly. Washington gets his troops across the Hudson while Clinton cowers defensively in New York. De Grasse gets his fleet heading north because Admiral Rodney cautiously chooses the defense of Barbados over pursuit. But still, the odds of the troops and the ships arriving at the Chesapeake at the same time and Cornwallis remaining a sitting duck in Yorktown are preposterous. All that transport, all those men trudging and horses galloping along the New World's sandy, woodsy roads, winding through forests, past lonely clearings, among bears and wolves and chipmunks and Indians and passenger pigeons. It makes Harry sleepy to think about. The tangle of it all, the trouble. He reads 10 pages a night. His is a slow march. He does not always gravitate in his health walks to the black section of Delian. He discovers and explores posh streets he never dreamed were there, long roads parallel to the beach, giving the passer-by glimpses of backs of houses that front on the ocean, wooden backstairs and sun-decks, 3-car garages at the end of driveways surfaced in crushed seashells, plantings of hibiscus and jacaranda, splashing sounds coming from a fenced-in swimming pool, the purr of air conditioners lost amid the retreating and advancing shush of the surf. Posh, shush. Some people have it made. Not for them a condo where they steal your view of the Gulf from the balcony. No matter how hard you climb, there are always the rich above you, who got there without effort. Lucky stiffs, holding you down, making you discontent, so you buy more of the crap advertised on television. Occasional breaks in the developed oceanfront property permit a look at the Gulf, its striped sails and scooting jet skis, its parachutes being pulled by power boats, its far gray stationary freighters. Bicyclers in bathing suits pass him with a whir. A beefy young mailman in blue-gray shorts and socks to match pushes along one of these pouches on rubber wheels they have now like baby strollers. We're getting soft. A nation of couch potatoes. The man who brought the mail to Jackson Road, he forgets his name, an iron-haired man with a handsome, unhappy face, Mom said his wife had left him, used to carry this scuffed leather pouch, leaning to one side against its pull, especially on Fridays when the magazines came to the houses, Life and the Post. Left by his wife. Harry, as a boy, used to try to imagine what could have been so terribly wrong with him to earn such a disgrace in life. His Nikes with the bubbles of air in the heels take him along crushed shell sidewalks, so white they hurt his eyes when the sun is high. And he walks through an area of marinas cut into coral shell, neat, straight streets of water sliced out, full of power boats tied up obedient and empty, their rub rails tapping the sliced coral, their curved sides seeming to tremble and twitch in the sunlight, reflected in bobbling stripes off the calm water as it lightly kicks and laps. Tap. Lap. No trespassing signs abound, but not so much for him, a respectable-looking white man past middle age. Each boat ties up as much money as a house used to cost, and a number of them, no doubt, are involved in cocaine smuggling, putt-putting out in the dead of the night when the moon is down. Crime and the sea have always mixed. Pirates ever since there have been ships. Law ends with the land. Man is nothing out there. A few bubbles as he goes down under the towering waves. That must be why Harry has always been afraid of it, the water. He loves freedom, but a grassy field is his idea of enough. People down here are crazy about boats, but not him. Give him terra firma. Away from the water, he walks miles of plain neighborhoods, glorified cabins put up after the war for people without much capital, who yet wanted a piece of the sun Washington won for them, or else were born here, this strange, thin vacation land their natural home, their houses shedding paint like a sunbather's clothes, surrounded not by barberry and yew bushes, but spiky cactuses fattening in the baking heat. America too hot and dry, really, for European civilization to take deep root. But it is the widespread black section that draws him back. He doesn't quite know why, whether because he is exerting his national right to go where he pleases, or because this ignored part of Delian is in some way familiar. He's been there before his life got too soft. On the Monday after a pretty good weekend for blacks, a black Miss America got elected, and Randall Cunningham brought the Eagles back from being down to the Redskins 20-0, Rabbit ventures several blocks farther than he has dared walk before, and comes upon, beyond an abandoned high school built about when Brewer High was, an ochre brick edifice with tall gridded windows, and a piece of Latin in cement over the main entrance. A recreation field. A wide tan emptiness under the sun, with a baseball diamond and backstop at the far end, a pair of soccer goals set up in the outfield, and, nearer the street, two pitted clay tennis courts with wire nets slack and bent from repeated assaults, and also of pale tamped earth a basketball court. A backboard and netless hoop lifted up on pipe legs preside at either end. A small pack of black boys are scrimmaging around one basket. Legs, shouts. Puffs of dust rise from their striving, stop-and-starting feet. Some benches have been placed in an unmowed strip of seedy-blanched weeds next to the cement sidewalk. The benches are backless, so you can sit facing the street or facing the field. Rabbit seats himself on the end of one, facing neither way, so he can watch the basketball while seeming to be doing something else, just resting a second on his way through, not looking at anything, minding his own business. The kids, 6 of them in shorts and tank tops, vary in heights and degrees of looseness, but all have that unhurried look he likes to see, missing shots or making them, passing back out and then crossing over in a screen, dribbling as if to drive in and then stopping dead to pass off in a droll behind-the-back toss, imitating the fancy stuff they see on television, altogether making a weave, nobody trying too hard. It's a long life, a long afternoon. Their busy legs are up to their knees in a steady haze of pink dust lifting from the clay, their calves dulled, but for where sweat makes dark rivulets, their sneakers solidly coated a rosy earth color. There is a breeze here, stirred up by the empty space stretching to the baseball backstop. Rabbit's watch says 4 o'clock. School is over, but the brick high school has been abandoned. The real action is elsewhere, at some modern low glassy high school you take a bus to, out on the bulldozed edges of the city. Rabbit is happy to think that the world isn't yet too crowded to have a few of these underused pockets left. Grass, he observes, has crept onto the dirt court in the middle, where the pounding, pivoting feet rarely come. Shallow semicircular troughs have been worn around the baskets at either end. Though he is sitting some distance away, a good firm chip shot or a feathered wedge, the players eye him. They're doing this for themselves, not as a show for some fat old honky walking around where he shouldn't be. Where's his car? Feeling heat from their sidelong glances, not wanting so delicate a tangency to turn awkward, Harry sighs ostentatiously and heaves himself up from the bench and walks away the way he came, taking note of the street signs so he can find this peaceful place again. If he comes every day, he'll blend in. Blacks don't have this racist thing whites do about keeping their neighborhoods pure. They can't be too angry these days with their third Miss America just elected. The funny thing about the final judges' panel, it held 2 celebrities he feels he knows, has taken into himself. Loves, actually. Felicia Rashad, who for his money is the real star of the Cosby Show, with those legs and that nice loose smile. And Mike Schmidt, who had the grace to pack it in when he could no longer produce. So there is life after death of a sort. Schmidt judges. Skeeter lives. And the weekend before last, a young black girl beat Chrissy Everett in the last U.S. Open match she'll ever play. She packed it in, too. There comes a time. Now the news press wears daily banner headlines tracking Hurricane Hugo. Deadly Hugo roars into islands. Hugo rips into Puerto Rico. Tuesday, he walks in the expensive beachfront areas and scans the sky for hurricane signs, for clouds God's finger might write, and reads none. In the hall that evening, happening to be standing with him at the elevators, Mrs. Zabritsky turns those veiny, protuberant eyes up at him out of her skeletal face and pronounces, "Terrible thing." "What is?" "The thing coming," she says, her white hair looking already wind-tossed, lifted out from her skull in all directions. "Oh, it'll never get here," Harry reassures her. "It's all this media hype, you know, hype, phony hullabaloo. They have to make news out of something every night." "Yeah?" Mrs. Zabritsky says, coyly. The way her neck twists into her hunched shoulders gives her head a flirtatious tilt she may not mean. But then again she may. The way her neck twists into her hunched shoulders gives her head a flirtatious tilt she may not mean. But then again she may. Didn't he read somewhere that even in the Nazi death camps there were romances? This windowless corridor with its peach and silver wallpaper is an eerie crypt-like space he is always anxious to get out of. That big vase on the marble half-moon table, with green glaze running into golden, could be holding someone's ashes. Still the elevator refuses to arrive. His female companion clears her throat and volunteers, "Wednesday buffet tomorrow. I like extra much the buffet." "Me too," he tells her, "except I can't choose, and then I wind up taking too much and then eating it all." What is she suggesting, that they go together? That they have a date? He stopped telling her that Janice is coming down. "Do you do the kosher?" "I don't know. Those scallops wrapped in bacon, are they kosher?" She stares at him as if he were the crazy one, stares so hard her eyeballs seem in danger of snapping the bloody threads that hold them fast in their sockets. Then she must have decided he was joking, for a careful, stiff smile slowly spreads across the lower half of her face, crisscrossed by wrinkles like a quilt sewn of tiny squares of skin. He thinks of that little sniffly slut in the Polish-American club, her silken skin below the waist, below the sweater, and feels bitter toward Janice for leaving him at his age at the mercy of women. He eats at his table alone, but is so disturbed by Mrs. Zabritsky's attempt at invading him, he takes 2 nitrostats to quell his heart. After dinner in bed on September 1st, 1781, the French troops make a dazzling impression upon the citizens of Philadelphia. Ecstatic applause greeted the dazzling spectacle of the French as they passed in review in their bright white uniforms and white plumes. Wearing colored lapels and collars of pink, green, violet, or blue identifying their regiments, they were the most brilliantly appointed soldiers in Europe. Joseph Reed, the President of the state of Pennsylvania, entertained the French officers at a ceremonial dinner, of which the main feature was an immense 90-pound turtle with soup served in its shell. Talk about cholesterol. Didn't seem to bother them, but then how old did those poor devils get to be? Not 56, most of them. The troops are scared to march south for fear of malaria. Rochambeau has talked Washington out of attacking New York, and at this point seems to be the brains of the revolution. He wants to rendezvous with de Grasse at the head of the Chesapeake. De Grasse has evaded Hood by sailing the back alley route between the Bahamas and Cuba. It will never work. Hugo heading for U.S., the news press headline says next morning. For breakfast now, Harry has switched from Frosted Flakes to Nabisco's shredded wheat and bran, though he forgets exactly why, something about fiber and the bowels. We're all plumbing, the doctors say. He does hope he never reaches the point where he has to think at the time about shitting. Ma Springer, toward the end, got to talking about her bowel movements like they were family heirlooms, each one precious. On the evening news, half the commercials are for laxatives and the other half for hemorrhoid medicine, as if only assholes watch the news. After breakfast, he walks along Pindo Palm Boulevard in the morning and brings back a bag of groceries from Winn-Dixie, passing up the Keystone corn chips and going heavy on the locale frozen dinners. The day's predicted showers come at noon, but seem over by 3, and in a kind of trance, Rabbit drives into downtown Delian, parks at a 2-hour meter, and walks the mile to the playing field he discovered Monday. Today, 2 sets of boys are on the dirt court, each using 1 basket. One set is energetically playing a 2-on-2, but the other consists of 3 boys at a desultory game of what he used to call horse. You take a shot, and if it goes in, the next guy has to make the same shot. And if he misses, he's an H, or an HO. And when he's a horse, he's out. Rabbit takes the bench within a chip shot of this group and frankly watches. After all, is it a free country or not? The 3 are in their early teens at best, and don't know what to make of this sudden, uninvited audience. One of these old oafes after some crack or a black boy's dick? Their languid motions stiffen. They jostle shoulders and pass each other sliding silent messages that make one another giggle. One of them, perhaps deliberately, lets a pass flip off his hands and bounce Harry's way. He leans off his bench end and stops it left-handed, not his best hand, but it remembers. It remembers exactly. That taut, pebbled roundness, the smooth seams between, the little circlet for taking the air valve. A big pebbled ball that wants to fly. He flips it back a bit awkwardly, sitting, but still with a little zing to show he's handled one before. Somewhat satisfied, the trio resume horse, trying skyhooks, under-the-basket layups, fall-back jumpers, crazy improvised underhanded or sidearm shots that now and then go in by accident or miracle. One such wild toss rockets off the rim and comes Rabbit's way. This time he stands up with the ball and advances with it toward the boys. He feels himself big, a big shape with the sun behind him. His shadow falls across the face of the nearest boy, who wears an unraveling wool cap of many colors. Another boy has the number 8 on his tank top. "What's the game?" Harry asks them. "You call it horse?" "We call it 3, the wool cap answers reluctantly. 3 misses you out." He reaches for the ball, but Rabbit lifts it out of his reach. "Let me take a shot, could I?" The boys' eyes consult. They figure this is the way to get the ball back. "Go ahead," Woolcap says. Harry is out on an angle to the left, maybe 20 feet, and as his knees dip and his right arm goes up, he feels the heaviness of the years, all those blankets of time, since he did this last. A bank shot. He has the spot on the backboard in his sights, but the ball doesn't quite have the length, and instead of glancing off and in, jams between the wood and hoop and kicks back into the hands of number 8. "Hey, man," the third one, the one who looks most Hispanic and most sullen, taunts him. "You're history." "I'm rusty," Rabbit admits. "The air down here is different than I'm used to." "You want to see somebody sink that shot?" Number 8, the tallest, asks him. He stands where Harry stood and opens his mouth and lets his pink tongue dangle the way Michael Jordan does. He gently paws the air above his forehead so the ball flies from his long, loose brown hand. But he misses also, hitting the rim on the right. This breaks some of the ice. Rabbit holds still, waiting to see what they will do with him. The boy in the hat of concentric circles, a black muslin hat Harry imagines, takes the rebound and now says, "Let me sink that mother." And indeed it does go in, though the boy kind of flings it, and unlike number 8, will never be a Michael Jordan. Now or never. Harry asks, "Hey, how about letting me play one game of, what do you call it, 3? One quick game and I'll go. I'm just out walking for exercise." The sullen, Hispanic-looking boy says to the others, "Why are you letting this man butt in? This ain't for my blood," and goes off and sits on the bench. But the other two, figuring perhaps that one white man is the tip of the iceberg and the quickest way through trouble is around it, oblige the interloper and let him play. He goes a quick 2 misses down. A floating double pump number 8 pulls off over the stretched hands of an imaginary crowd of defenders, and a left-handed pop the wool hat establishes and number 8 matches. But then Rabbit finds a ghost of his old touch and begins to dominate. Take a breath of oxygen, keep your eye on the front of the rim, and it gets easy. The distance between your hands and the hoop gets smaller and smaller. You and it, 10 feet off the ground above it all. He even shows them a stunt he perfected in the gravel alleys of Mount Judge, a 2-handed backward set, the basket sighted upside, the head bent way back. Seen upside down, how blue and stony gray the cloudy earth appears. An abyss, a swallowing, upheaving kind of earth. He sinks the backward set shot, and all 3 of them laugh. These kids never take 2-handed set shots. It's not black style, and by doing nothing else from 5 steps out, Rabbit might have cleaned up. But since they were good sports to let him in, he lets himself get sloppy silly on a few one-handers, and number 8 gains back control. "Here you see a Kareem skyhook," the boy says, and does sink a hook from about 6 feet out on the right. "When I was a kid," Rabbit tells them, "a guy called Bob Pettit, played for St. Louis, used to specialize in those." Almost on purpose, he misses. "That gives me 3. I'm out. Thanks for the game, gentlemen." They murmur wordlessly, like bees at this farewell. To the boy sitting on the bench, out of protest, he says, "All yours, amigo." Bending down to pick up the furled golf umbrella he brought along in case it rained again, Harry smiles to see that his walking Nikes are coated with a pink-tan dust, just like these black boys' sneakers. He walks back to his car at the meter feeling lightened, purged like those people on the Milk of Magnesia commercials who drift around in fuzzy focus in their bathrobes, ecstatic at having become regular. His bit of basketball has left him feeling cocky. He stops at a Joy food store on the way back to Valhalla Village and buys a big bag of onion-flavored potato chips and a frozen lasagna to heat up in the oven instead of going down to the buffet and risking running into Mrs. Zabritsky. He's beginning to think he owes her something for keeping him company on the floor, for being another lonely refugee. In the condo, the phone is silent. The evening news is all Hugo and looting in St. Croix and St. Thomas in the wake of the devastation, and a catastrophic health plan repeal in Washington that gets big play down here because of all the elderly, and a report on that French airliner that disappeared on the way from Chad to Paris. The wreckage has been found, scattered over a large area of the Sahara Desert. From the wide distribution of the debris, it would appear to have been a bomb. Just like that plane over Lockerbie, Rabbit thinks. His cockiness ebbs. Every plane had a bomb ticking away in its belly. We can explode any second. The rooms and furniture of the condo in these days he's been living here alone have taken on the tension and menace of a living person who is choosing to remain motionless. At night he can feel the rooms breathe and think. They are thinking about him. The blank TV, the blonde sofa, the birds made of small white shells, the taut bedspread in the room where Nelson and Prue stayed last New Year's, the aqua kitchen cabinets that seemed too intense once they were painted and still do. The phone that refuses to ring all have a certain power, the ability to outlast him. He is flesh, they are inanimate things. The well-sealed hollow space that greeted his arrival 17 days ago now does brim with fear, with a nervous expectancy that the babble of the TV, the headlines in the paper, the ticking warmth of the oven and the minutes ticking down on the timer panel, even the soft scuffle and rustle of his body's own movements hold at bay for their duration. But when these small commotions are over, the silence comes back, the presence of absence, the unanswerable question that surrounds his rustling upright stalk of warm blood. The lasagna is gluey and like napalm on the tongue, but he eats it all, a portion for two, while flipping channels between Jennings and Brokaw looking for the best clips of hurricane damage and wind, wild, wet wind screaming through rooms just like this one, knocking out entire glass sliding doors and skimming them around like pie plates. Everything flies loose, the world is crashing, nothing in life can be nailed down. Terrific. He suddenly needs, as suddenly as the need to urinate comes upon a man taking diuretics, to talk to his grandchildren. He is a grandfather, they can't deny him that. He has to look up Nelson's number in the address book on the fake bamboo desk. It was changed last winter. He's forgotten it already. Your mind at Harry's age lets all sorts of things slip. He finds the book, kept in Janice's half-formed schoolgirl hand, in a variety of slants. He dials, having to hang up once when he thinks he might have dialed an 8 for a 9. Prue answers. Her voice is casual, light, tough. He almost hangs up again. "Hi," he says, "it's me." "Harry, you really shouldn't be—" "I'm not. I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to my grandchildren. Isn't it about time for Roy's birthday?" "Next month." "Just think, he'll be 4. "He is 4. He'll be 5. "Time for kindergarten," Harry says. "Incredible. I understand you and little Nellie are working on a 3rd. Terrific." "Well, we're just seeing what happens." "No more condoms, huh? What about him and AIDS?" "Harry, please, this is none of your business. But he was tested, if you must know, and is HIV negative." "Terrific. One more thing off my mind. The kid's straight and the kid's clean. Prue, I think I'm going crazy down here. My dreams, they're like cut-up comic strips." He can picture her smiling wryly at this, her mouth tugging down on one side, her free hand pushing back from her forehead with 2 fingers stray strands of carrot-colored hair. Sexy. But what has it got her? A would-be social worker for a husband, living space in another woman's house, and a future of drudging and watching her looks fade away in the mirror. Her voice in his ear is like a periscope glimpse, blurred by salt spray, of the upper world. She is up there, he is down here. Her tone is changing, sinking toward friendliness. Once you fucked them, their voices ever hold these grainy traces. "Harry, what are you doing down there for amusement?" "Oh, I walk around a lot, getting to know the town. Nice old town, Delian. Tell Janice, if you ever see her, that there's a rich Jewish widow giving me the eye." "She's right here for dinner, actually. We're celebrating because she sold a house. Not your house, she can't sell that until you agree, but a house for the real estate company, for Pearson and Schrack. She's showing houses for them weekends till she gets her license." "That's fantastic. Put her on and I'll congratulate her." Prue hesitates. "I'll have to ask her if she wants to talk to you." His stomach feels hollow suddenly, scared. "You don't have to do that. I called to talk to the kids, honest." "I'll put Judy on. She's right at my elbow, all excited about the hurricane. You take care of yourself, Harry." "Sure, you know me. Careful." "I know you," she says. "A crazy man." She sounded Dutch, the cozy, settled way she said that. She's assimilating. One more middle-aged brewer broad. There is a clatter and whispering, and now Judy has the phone and cries, "Oh, Grandpa, we're all so worried about you and the hurricane." He says, "Who's all so worried? Not my Judy, not after she brought me in on that crippled sunfish. The TV says Hugo is going to hit the Carolinas. That's 600 miles away. It was sunny here today, mostly. I played a little basketball with some kids not much older than you. It rained here all day. And you're having Grandma to dinner tonight," he tells her. Judy says, "She says she doesn't want to talk to you. What did you do to make her so mad?" "Oh, I don't know. Maybe I channel surfed too much. Hey, Judy, know what? On the way down, I drove right by Disney World, and I promised myself that the next time you're here, we'll all go." "You don't have to. A lot of the kids at school have been, and they say it gets boring." "How's school going?" "I like the teachers and all, but I can't stand the other kids. They're all assholes." "Don't say that. Such language. What's the matter? Do they ignore you?" "I wish they would. They tease me about my freckles. They call me Carrot Top." Her little voice breaks. "Well, then, they like you. They think you're terrific. Just don't wear too much lipstick until you're 15. Remember what I told you last time we talked?" "You said don't force it." "Right. Don't force it. Let nature do its work. Do what your mommy and daddy tell you. They love you very much." She wearily sighs. "I know. You're the light of their lives. You ever hear that expression before, the light of their lives?" "No." "Well, then you've learned something. Now go do your thing, honey. Could you put Roy on?" "He's too dumb to talk." "No, he's not. Put him on. Tell him his grandpa wants to give him some words of wisdom." The phone clatters down, and in the background there is a kind of shredded wheat of family noises. He thinks he even hears Janice's voice sounding decisive the way Ma Springer's used to. Footsteps approach through the living room he knows so well. The Barca lounger, the picture windows with the drawn curtains, the pie-crust-edged knick-knack table, though the green glass egg with the teardrop of emptiness inside that used to sit on it is now on the shelves here a few feet from his eyes. Prue's voice says, "Janice says she doesn't want to talk to you, Harry, but here's Roy." "Hi, Roy," Harry says. Silence. God on the line again. "How's it going up there? I hear it rained all day." More silence. "Are you being a good boy?" Silence, but with a touch of breathing in it. "You know," Harry says, "it may not feel like much to you right now, but these are important years." "Hi, Grandpa," the child's voice at last pronounces. "Hi," Harry has to respond, though it puts him back to the beginning. "I miss you down here," he says. Silence. A little birdie comes to the balcony every morning and asks, "Where's Roy? Where's Roy?" Silence, which is what this lie deserves. But then the child comes out with the other thing he's perhaps been coached to say. "I love you, Grandpa." "Well, I love you, Roy. Happy birthday, by the way, for next month. 5 years old. Think of it." "Happy birthday," the child's voice repeats in that oddly deep, man-like way it sometimes has. Harry finds himself waiting for more, but then realizes there is no more. "Okay," he says, "I guess that does it, Roy. I've loved talking with you. Give everybody my love. Hang up now." You can hang up. Silence, and then a clumsy, soft clatter, and the buzz of a dead line. Strange, Rabbit thinks, hanging up his own receiver, that he had to make the child do it first. Chicken in a suicide pact. Alone, he is terrified by the prospect of an entire evening in these rooms. It is 7:30, plenty of time to still make the buffet, though his mouth feels tender from all that hot lasagna and the bag full of onion potato chips full of sharp edges and salt. He will just go down and pick a few locale items off the buffet table. Talking to his family has exhilarated him. He feels them all safely behind him. Without showering, he puts on a shirt, coat, and tie. Mrs. Zabritsky isn't at the elevator. In the half-empty mead hall, under the berserk gaze of the Viking warriors in the big ceramic mural, he helps himself generously to, among other items, the scallops wrapped in bacon. The mix of textures, of crisp, curved bacon and rubbery yielding scallops, in his sensitive mouth feels so delicious his appetite becomes bottomless. He goes back for more, and more creamed asparagus and potato pancakes. then suddenly is so full his heart feels squeezed. He takes a nitrostat and skips dessert and coffee, even decaf. Carefully he treads back across the alien texture of Bermuda grass and the carpeted traffic island beneath the warm dome of stars. Really a deep basin we are looking down into. He saw that this afternoon when he did the upside-down set shot. We are stuck fast to the earth like flies on a ceiling. He feels stuffed and dizzy. The air is thick. The Milky Way just barely shows, like the faint line of fair hair up the middle of some women's bellies. He gets back into the condo in time for the last 15 minutes of Growing Pains, the only show on TV where every member of the family is repulsive, if you count Roseanne's good old boy husband as not repulsive. Then he flips back and forth between Unsolved Mysteries on Channel 20 and an old Abbott and Costello on 36 that must have been funnier when it came out, the same year he graduated from high school. Costello's yips seem mechanical and aggravating, and Abbott looks old and cruel when he slaps his fat buddy. People yelled and snapped at one another like animals then. Maybe the 60s did some good after all. Among the commercials that keep interrupting is that Nissan Infiniti one of crickets and lily ponds. No car at all, just pure snob nature. The Lexus commercials he's seen are almost as vague. An idyllic road shiny with rain. They're both skirting the issue. Can the Japanese establish a luxury image? Or will people with 35,000 to burn prefer to buy European? Thank God Harry no longer has to care. Jake down toward Pottstown has to care, but not Harry. He brushes his teeth, taking care to floss and rinse with Paradex. Without Janice here, he is becoming staid in his habits, another old fogey bachelor fussing with his plumbing and nostril hairs. Nostril hairs. He never wants to look like Dr. Morris. His double dinner burns in his stomach, but when he sits on the toilet, nothing comes out. Philip's milk of magnesia, he should get some. Another of their commercials has a black man talking about Mom, and that was unfortunate. His color made the shit too real. In bed, on the march to Yorktown, the Allied armies come upon British atrocities around Williamsburg. De Grasse's Swedish aide Carl Gustaf Tornquist, a latter-day Viking, noted in his journal, "On a beautiful estate, a pregnant woman was found murdered in her bed through several bayonet stabs. The barbarians had opened both of her breasts and written above the bed canopy, 'Thou shalt never give birth to a rebel.' In another room was just as horrible a sight. 5 cut-off heads arranged on a cupboard in place of plaster-cast figures which lay broken to pieces on the floor. Dumb animals were no less spared. The pastures were in many places covered with dead horses, oxen, and cows. Harry tries to fall asleep through a screen of agitation bred by these images. He has always thought of the Revolution as a kind of gentleman's war, without any of that grim stuff. He begins to have those slippery half-visions, waking dreams that only upon reflection make no sense. He sees a woman's round stomach, with smooth seams and a shining central fuzz, split open and yield yards and yards of red string like the inside of a baseball. Then he is lying beside a body, a small man dressed all in black, a body limp and without muscle, a ventriloquist's dummy wearing sunglasses. He awakes in the dark, too early for the sound of lawn-mowers, for the cheep of the dull brown bird in the Norfolk pine, for the chatter of the young businessmen's dawn foursomes. He makes his way to the bathroom amid motionless glossy shapes and slants of dim light. The blue oven timer numerals, the yellowish guard lights on the golf course fence. He urinates sitting down like a woman and returns to bed. Always he sleeps on his old side of the bed, as if Janice is still on her side. He dreams now of the portal with the round top, but this time it pushes open easily, on noiseless, unresistant hinges, upon a bustling brightness within. It is somehow Ma Springer's downstairs, only a step down into it, a kind of basement, brighter than her house ever was, with a many-colored carnival gaudiness like something in Latin America, like the cruise ship commercial they keep playing in the middle of the news, and full of welcoming people he hardly knows or can barely remember. Mrs. Zabritsky as a slender young girl, though still with that inviting, inquisitive crick in her neck and wearing a racily short-fringed skirt like they wore in the 60s. And Marty Totherow carrying a mailman's pouch that matches his lopsided face. And Mom and Pop in their prime, looking tall and rangy in their Sunday best. bringing a baby girl home from the hospital wrapped in a pink blanket, just its tiny tipped-up nose and a single tiny closed eyelid eye showing, and a tall, soberly staring dark-eyed man with lacquered black hair like an old ad for Kreml, who gives him a manly handshake, while Janice at his side whispers to him that this, of course, is Roy all grown up and as tall as he. Awaking, Rabbit can still feel the pressure on his hand and a smile of greeting dying on his face. Hugo aims at southeast coast. U.S. air jet crashes in New York River. Bomb probably caused crash of French DC-10. Lee slows boaters in Manatee Territory. Harry feeds himself oat bran and digests the news press. Chaos reigned on St. Croix as police and National Guardsmen joined machete-armed mobs on a post-Hugo looting spree. Tourists pleaded with reporters landing on the island to get them off. What fucking crybabies. It occurs to him that his dream might relate to all this Caribbean news, the pre-weekend party they have at resort hotels to welcome the new arrivals. He steps out onto his narrow balcony to seize the day. The papers said today would be sunny despite Hugo, and so it is. The distant blue-green skyscrapers hurl back blobs of light from the eastward morning sun. The Gulf cannot be seen, but he can smell it out there. He tries to remember who all was at the party, but can't. Dream people don't stick to the ribs. The plane in New York skidded off the end of the runway, and 2 people were killed. Just 2. 171 died in the Sahara. A caller in London gave all the credit to Allah. Harry doesn't mind that one as much as the Lockerbie Pan Am bomb. Like everything else on the news, you get bored. It gets to seem a gimmick, like all those TV timeouts in football. While other younger men shout and kid on the golf course behind the curtained sliding doors, Harry makes the bed and sweeps the kitchen floor, and adds his orange juice glass and cereal bowl to the orderly array in the dishwasher, waiting to add up to a load's worth. Not quite there yet. When Janice shows up at last, he wants the state of the place to give her an object lesson in housekeeping. At 10, he goes out for his morning walk. He looks at the northeast sky toward the hurricane that is snubbing Florida and is struck by the clouds, how intricate they are, tattered, gray on white on blue, with tilted sheets of fish scales and rows of long clouds shaggy underneath but rounded on top as if by action of swiftly running water, like the rhythmic ribs of sand the tide leaves. A glassy wind blows through the sunlight. There is something in the air that makes it slightly difficult to breathe. Lack of ozone? Or too much ozone? It may be his imagination, but the sky seems clean of airplanes. Usually you can see them layered in their slow circling slants coming in to land at the Southwest Florida Regional Airport. The planes have been chased from the sky. Under the sun, a kind of highway of haze in bars recedes to the northeast horizon like the reflections the moon stacks up in a calm ocean. On an impulse, he decides to take the Celica and drive downtown and park at a meter near the First Federal Bank and walk toward the black section. This afternoon, he thinks, he might feel like trying to get in some holes of golf. The pro shop called up a few days ago and said they found his shoes. At the recreation field beyond the empty Ochre High School, a lone tall boy in denim cutoffs is shooting baskets by himself. His tank top is an electric turquoise stenciled with a snarling tiger head. Orange and white striped fur, yellow eyes, the tongue and end of the nose an unreal violet. On this boy, though, the outfit has a certain propriety, the dignity of a chosen uniform. Older than the kids yesterday, 18 at least, he is a deliberate performer, making good serious economical moves, dribbling in, studying the ground, staring at the hoop, sizing up the shot with 2 hands on the ball, letting go with the left hand underneath only at the last while shooting. He wears ankle-high black sneakers and no socks. His haircut is one of those muffin shapes on the top of the skull, with a series of X's along the sides and back where the shaved part begins. Sitting on the bench at the opposite end of a small red knapsack the boy has evidently left there, Rabbit watches him a good while the sun shines and the glassy wind blows and passing clouds dip the dirt field and the surrounding frame houses in shadow. The houses have the colors of sun-faded wash and seem remote and silent. You don't see people going in and out. To vary his attitude, Harry sometimes tips his white face back as if to sunbathe, coating his vision in red, letting photons burn through his translucent eyelids. One time, when he opens his eyes, the boy is standing close, darker than a cloud. There is something matte about his blackness, and his high cheekbones and the thinness of his lips hint at Indian blood. "You want something?" His voice is light, level, unsmiling. It seems to come out of the tiger's snarling violet mouth. "No, nothing," Rabbit says. "Am I sitting here bother you?" "You after no Scotty?" With the hand not holding the basketball against his hip, he makes the smallest, most delicate little motion of cracking a whip. Rabbit darts his eyes at the knapsack and brings them back to the tiger's mouth. "No thanks," he says. "Never touch it." "How about a little one-on-one, though, since you seem to be out here alone?" "I heard some cheesecake come here yesterday was foolin' around." "Just foolin'. That's what I do. I'm retired." "How come you come out here to do your foolin'? Lot of foolin' around places over there in your end of Delia Inn." He pronounces it the local way, Delia Inn. "It's pretty boring over there," Harry tells him. "I like it here where there isn't so much glitz. Do you mind?" The boy, taken a bit off balance, thinks for an answer, and Rabbit's hands dart out and rest on the basketball, a more worn one than the boy's yesterday had, and not leather-colored, but scuffed red, white, and blue. Its rough, smooth surface feels warm. "Come on," he begs, growlingly on. "Give me the ball." Tiger's expression doesn't change, but the ball comes loose. With it, Harry strides onto the packed dirt. He feels precariously tall, as when this summer he stepped out alone onto the macadam street. He put on Bermuda shorts this morning in case he got to play. Dust and reflected sun caress his bare calves, his chalky old man's calves that never had much hair and now have almost none. Actually none, where socks have rubbed for over 50 years. He goes for a jumper from pretty far out, and it lucks in. He and Tiger take shots alternately, careful not to touch and bouncing their passes to each other. "You played once," the tall boy says. "Long time ago. High school. Never got to college. Different style then than you guys have now. But if you feel like practicing your moves one-on-one, I'm game. Played at 21. Honor system. Call fouls on yourself." There seems a leaden sadness in Tiger's stare, but he nods and takes the ball bounced to him. He walks with a cocky slump, shoulders down, butt out to the half-court line, scratched in the dirt with the heels of sneakers. From the back, the kid is all bones and tendons, polished by sweat but not too much, the sloped shoulders matte beneath the turquoise straps. "Wait," Harry says. "I better take a pill first. Don't mind me." The nitrostat burns under his tongue, and by the time Tiger has come in and has his layup blocked and Rabbit has dribbled out and missed a 20-footer, the pill's little kick has reached his other end. He feels loose and deeply free at first. Tiger has some good herky-jerky moves and can get a step on the heavier older man whenever he wants, but he wastes a lot of shots. The stop-and-pop style doesn't give you quite the time to get in harmony with the target, and there isn't enough height to Tiger's arc. The ball comes off his hands flat and turns the hoop circle into a slot. And he is giving Harry an inch or two in height. Rabbit lifts a few close-in jumpers over the boy's fingertips. Soft, high, in, just like that. Air balls only right through the netless hoop. A scabby orange circle bent awry by too many show-offs, practicing slam dunks and hanging on imitating Darryl Dawkins. And Tiger begins to press tighter, inviting a turn around the corner and a break for the basket if Harry can find the surge. Tiger's elbows and sharp knees rattle off his body, and he has to laugh at the old sensation, the jostle and press. He is aware of his belly being slung up and down by the action, and of a watery weariness entering into his knees, but adrenaline and nostalgia overrule. Tiger begins to exploit his opponent's slowness more cruelly, more knifingly, slipping and slashing by, and Rabbit kicks himself up a notch, feeling his breath come harder through a narrower passage. Still, the sun feels good, springing sweat from his pores like calling so many seeds into life. The nature of this exertion is to mix him with earth and sky. Earth, the packed, pink-tan glaring dust printed over and over with the fanned bars of his Nikes, and the cage-like grid of Tiger's black sneakers, stamped earth in the rim of his vision as he dribbles. And sky, wide white sky, when he looks up to follow his shot or the others. The clouds have gathered in an agitated silvery arena around the blinding sun, a blue bull ring. Rabbit accidentally, in one twist of upward effort, stares straight into the sun and can't for a minute brush away its blinking red moon of an after-image. His chest feels full, his head dizzy. His pulse rustles in his ears. The soaked space between his shoulder blades holds a knife-like pain. Tiger retrieves his own rebound and holds the ball against his hip in his graceful way and gives Harry a deliberate stare. His skin is like a grinding stone of fine black grits. His ears are small and flat to his head, and his hair above the row of X's is kinked as tight as nature can make it. Sun glints from every circular particle. "Hey, man, you all right?" "I'm fine." "You puffin' pretty bad." "You wait till you're my age." "How about coolin' it? No big deal." This is gracious, Rabbit sees, through the sweat in his eyebrows and the pounding of his blood. He feels as if his tree of veins and arteries is covered with big pink blossoms. No big deal. No big deal you're too out of shape for this. No big deal you aren't good even for a little one-on-one. His sweat is starting to cake on his legs with the dust. He's afraid he's going to lose the rhythm, the dance, the whatever it is, the momentum, the grace. He asks, "Aren't you having fun?" He is enjoying scaring Tiger with his big red face, his heaving cheesecake bulk, his berserk icy blue eyes. Tiger says, "Sure, man, medium fun." At last he smiles. Wonderful even teeth in lavender gums. Even the ghetto kids get orthodontia now. "Let's keep our bargain. Play to 21, like we said. 18 up, right?" "Right." Neither player has called a foul. "Go. Your ball, Tiger." The pain in Harry's back is spreading like clumsy wings. The young black man whips around him for a quick under-the-basket layup. Harry takes the ball out and stops short a step inside the half-court line and, unguarded, lets fly an old-fashioned two-handed set shot. He knows as it leaves his hands it will drop. A groove in the shape of the day guides it down. "Man," Tiger says admiringly, "that is pure horseshit." And he tries to imitate it with a long one-hander that rockets straight back off the rim. Its arc is too low. Rabbit grabs the rebound, but then can't move with it. His body weighs a ton. His feet have lost their connection to his head. Tiger knifes in between him and the basket, leans right in his face with a violet snarl, then eases back a little so Rabbit feels a gap, a moment's slackness in the other in which to turn the corner. He takes one slam of a dribble, carrying his foe on his side like a bumping sack of coal, and leaps up for the peeper. The hoop fills his circle of vision. It descends to kiss his lips. He can't miss. Up he goes, way up toward the torn clouds. His torso is ripped by a terrific pain, elbow to elbow. He bursts from within. He feels something immense persistently fumble at him and falls unconscious to the dirt. Tiger catches the ball on its fall through the basket and feels a body bump against him as if in purposeful foul. Then he sees the big old white man, looking choked and kind of sleepy in the face, collapse soundlessly like a rag doll being dropped. Tiger stands amazed above the fallen body, the plaid Bermuda shorts, the brand-new walking Nikes, the blue golf shirt with a logo of intertwined V's. Adhesive dust of fine clay clings to one cheek of the unconscious flushed face like a shadow, like half of a clown's mask of paint. Shocked numb, the boy repeats, "Pure horseshit." The impulse to run ripples through him, draining his head of practical thoughts. He doesn't want to get mixed up with nobody. From the end of the bench he retrieves the knapsack, the kind very small Boy Scouts might use on a one-night camping trip, and, holding it and the basketball close to his chest, walks deliberately away. In the middle of the block he begins to run under the high, excited sky. An airplane goes over, lowering on a slow diagonal. Seen from above, his limbs splayed and bent, Harry is as alone on the court as the sun in the sky in its arena of clouds. Time passes. Then the social net twitches. Someone who in the houses bordering the lonely recreation field has been watching through a curtained window calls 911. Minutes later, several of the elderly poor, battened down against danger in their partitioned little rooms with only television for a friend, mistake the approaching sirens for a hurricane alert and believe that the storm has veered back from South Carolina toward them. "The infarction looks to be transmural," Dr. Ullman tells Janice, and clarifies, "right through the gosh darn wall." He tries to show her with the skin and flesh of his fist the difference between this and a subendocardial infarction that you can live with. "Ma'am, the whole left ventricle is shot," he says. My guess is there was a complete restenosis since this April's procedure up north. His big face, with its sunburnt hooked nose and jutting Australian jaw, looks confusingly to Janice in her sleeplessness and grief like a heart itself. All this activity of the doctor's hands, as if he's trying to turn Harry inside out for her, now that it's too late. Too late for a bypass now, Dr. Ullman almost snorts, and with an effort tames his voice into its acquired southern softness. Even if by a miracle, ma'am, he were to pull through this present trauma, where you and I have healthy, flexible muscle, he'd just have a wad of scar tissue. You can replace arteries and valves, but there's no substitute yet for live heart muscle. He exudes controlled anger, like a golfer who has missed 3 short putts in a row. He is so young, Janice groggily thinks, he blames people for dying. He thinks they do it to make his job more difficult. After last evening's visit from the Penn Park police, how young they seemed, too, how scared to be bringing their ugly news. The Delian Hospital had called them finally because neither the number of the condo phone nor the number they got for his driver's license address from information would answer. She had been out showing a young couple from out of state some properties. One a split level in Brewer Heights where the Merkits used to live, and the other an old sandstone farmhouse over toward Oriole. The police came into her driveway the minute she got home, their twirling blue light licking the limestone walls. And then telephoning to reach Mim, who wasn't answering her phone either, and to get seats for herself and Nelson on some kind of night flight to Florida, with Eastern still mostly out on strike and everything going in or out of Atlanta canceled or delayed because of the hurricane. And then the drive to South Philly and the airport, the miles of Schuylkill Expressway under repair, and among all the confusing barrels with reflective tape, Nelson's taking a turn that wound them up in the dead middle of the city right there by Independence Hall. It seemed to happen in a minute. And then the hours of waiting with nothing to do but soothe Nelson and read newspapers people had abandoned on the plastic chairs. And remember Harry all the ways he was from the day she first saw him in the high school corridors and at the basketball games, out there on the court, so glorious and blond, like a boy made of marble. And then the empty condo, so tidy except for the stacks of old newspapers he would never throw out, and the junk food crumbs in the wicker easy chair, but no traces of another woman in the bedroom, just that book she got him for last Christmas with the sailing ship on the jacket, and Nelson right beside her, overreacting to everything so she almost wished he had let her come alone. After a while the mother-in-you dies, just like heart muscle, she supposes, and a few hours of ragged sleep that ended too early when the boys began to mow the greens and the men began to play, with Nelson actually complaining at breakfast that there weren't any frosted flakes, just these bran cereals that taste like horse chow. After all this, Janice felt much like her husband did emerging from his long drive on Labor Day weekend, as if her body had been pounded all over with sandbags. In the hall, the newspaper was delivered to the door on this as on every other day. Hugo Clobbers, South Carolina. Dr. Morris, the old one, Harry's doctor, must have heard she is in the hospital. He comes into the waiting room of the intensive cardiac care unit looking himself not so well, spotty and whiskery, in an unpressed brown suit. He takes her hand and looks her right in the eye through his rimless glasses and tells her, "Sometimes it's time," which is fine for him, being near 80, or at least over 75. He came in to me some days ago, and I didn't like what I heard in his chest. But with an impairment like his, a person can live 2 weeks or 20 years, there's no telling. It can be a matter of attitude. He came in to me some days ago, and I didn't like what I heard in his chest. But with an impairment like his, a person can live 2 weeks or 20 years, there's no telling. It can be a matter of attitude. He seemed to have become a wee bit morbid. We agreed he needed something to do. He was too young for retirement. Tears are in Janice's eyes constantly ever since the blue police lights appeared, but this remark and the old man's wise and kind manner freshen them. Dr. Morris paid closer attention to Harry toward the end than she did. In a way, since those glimpses of him shining on the basketball court, she had slowly ceased to see him. He had become invisible. "Did he mention me?" she asks, wondering if Harry had revealed that they were estranged. The old doctor's sharp Scots gaze pierces her for a second. "Very fondly," he tells her. At this hour in the morning, a little after 9 o'clock, with dirty breakfast trays still being wheeled along the halls, there is no one else in the ICCU waiting room, and Nelson, in his own agitation, keeps wandering off to telephone Prue, to go to the bathroom, to get a cup of coffee and some frosted flakes at a cafeteria he's discovered in another wing. The waiting room is tiny, with one window looking toward the parking lot, damp at the edges from the lawn sprinklers last night, and a low table of mostly religious magazines, and a hard black settee and chairs and floor lamps of bent pipes and plastic shades. They don't want you to get too comfortable. They really want the patient all to themselves. While she's in this limbo alone, Janice thinks she should pray for Harry's recovery, a miracle. But when she closes her eyes to do it, she encounters a blank, dead wall. From what Dr. Ullman said, he would never be alive the way he was, and as Dr. Morris said, sometimes it's time. He had come to bloom early, and by the time she got to know him at Kroll's, he was already drifting downhill, though things did look up when the money from the lot began to be theirs. With him gone, she can sell the Penn Park house. Dear God, she prays, do what you think best. A young black nurse appears at the open door and says so softly, yet with a beautiful white smile, "He's conscious now," and leads her into the intensive care unit, which she remembers from last December. The central circular desk, like an airport control tower, full of TV sets showing in jumping orange lines each patient's heartbeat, and on three sides the rows of individual narrow bedrooms with glass front walls. When she sees her Harry lying in one of them as white as his sheets, with all these tubes and wires going in and out of him, lying behind the wall of glass, an emotion so big she fears for a second she might vomit hits her from behind. A crashing wave of sorrow and terrified awareness of utter loss, like nothing ever in her life, except the time she accidentally drowned her own dear baby. She had never meant never to forgive him. She had been intending one of these days to call. But the days slipped by. Holding her silence had become a kind of addiction. How could she have hardened her heart so against this man who, for better or worse, had placed his life beside hers at the altar? It hadn't been Harry, really. It had been Prue. What man could resist? She and Prue and Nelson had analyzed it to the point of exhaustion. She was satisfied it wouldn't happen again, and she had a life to get on with. Now this. Just when... He called her stupid. It was true she was slower than he was, and slower to come into her own. But he was beginning to respect her. It was hard for him to respect any woman. His mother had done that to him, the hateful woman. Though all four of their parents were alive when they courted at Kroll's, she and Harry were orphans, really. He more than she even. He saw something in her that would hold him fast for a while. She wants him back from this element he is sinking in. She wants it so much she might vomit. His desertions and Prue and Thelma and all, whatever else, are washed away by the grandeur of his lying there so helpless, so irretrievable. The nurse slides the door open. Above his baby blue nose tubes for oxygen, his blue eyes are open, but he doesn't seem to hear. He sees her, sees his wife here, little and dark-complected and stubborn in her forehead and mouth, blubbering like a waterfall and talking about forgiveness. "I forgive you," she keeps saying, while he can't remember for what. He lies there floating in a wonderful element, a bed of happy unfeeling that points of pain now and then poke through. He listens to Janice blubber and marvels at how small she grows, sitting in that padded wheelchair they give you, small like something in a crystal snowball, but finer, fine like a spider web, every crease in her face and rumpled gray saleswoman's suit. She forgives him, and he thanks her, or thinks that he thanks her. He believes she takes his hand. His consciousness comes and goes, and he marvels that in its gaps the world is being tended to, just as it was in the centuries before he was born. There is a terrible deep dryness in his throat, but he knows the sensation will pass. The doctors will do something about it. Janice seems one of those bright figures in his dream, the party they were having. He thinks of telling her about Tiger and I won, but the impulse passes. He is nicely tired. He closes his eyes. The red cave he thought had only a front entrance and exit turns out to have a back door as well. His wife's familiar and beloved figure has been replaced by that of Nelson, who is also unhappy. "You didn't talk to her, Dad," the kid complains. "She said you stared at her but didn't talk." Okay, he thinks, what else am I doing wrong? He feels sorry about what he did to the kid, but he's doing him a favor now, though Nelson doesn't seem to know it. Can't you say anything? Talk to me, Dad, the kid is yelling, or trying not to yell, his face white in the gills with the strain of it, and some unaskable question tweaking the hairs of one eyebrow, so they grow up against the grain. He wants to put the kid out of his misery. Nelson, he wants to say, you have a sister. But does he say it? His son's anxious, straining expression hasn't changed. What he next says, though, shows he may have understood the word sister. We phoned Aunt Mim, Dad, and she'll get here as soon as she can. She has to change planes in Kansas City. From his expression and the pitch of his voice, the boy is shouting into a fierce wind blowing from his father's direction. Don't die, Dad, don't, he cries, then sits back with that question still on his face and his dark, wet eyes shining like stars of a sort. Harry shouldn't leave the question hanging like that. The boy depends on him. Well, Nelson, he says, all I can tell you is, it isn't so bad. Rabbit thinks he should maybe say more. The kid looks wildly expectant. But enough. Maybe. Enough. This concludes the reading of Rabbit at Rest by John Updike. This book was read by Michael Prichard.